Hello, it's Anne here. I thought today that I'd record voiceover while you're watching me edit some clips, and that for mine and Unstable Obsession's upcoming collabs. One of them being Disney and live action, and the other one being just live action. So, I put on my community post and then my Instagram, so don't mind me here. I'm just plugging my Instagram in that I'm really not active on because I keep on forgetting to post stuff on there. I'm so sorry. That I was going to be doing a watch me edit, and I thought maybe to spice it up, some people could ask me questions. And I was going to do a voiceover regardless because I've had some people asking me how the fuck do I edit live action so well like I do, and I'm like, I don't know, let's just do it. So I got 2 questions on my Instagram. One of them is serious, one of them not so much. And I know the person who asked me the not so serious question is going to be like, it's actually a really serious question. So the more serious question really helps segue into what I'm going to talk about, which is how do you make the most flawless looking live action crossovers, you wizard, with an insane amount of luck. That's the watch me edit. No, so I'm gonna tell you right now how I do it, but before you even get into After Effects to be a fucking psychopath, the first thing you always do is make your clips brighter. So what I mean by that is when you're editing live action, it is basically a common rule, I think, because everyone does it, to put a coloring on it. So for instance, with Too Far Gone, the coloring that I've chose to put on this project is Dragon Glass by Kind On 18, because obviously, for instance, Bridgerton and Shadow and Bone have very are contrasting in color schemes. So Bridgerton is very bright, it's got like your pinks, your blues, your greens and yellows, poor Penelope. So it's very bright in contrast to Shadow and Bone, which I haven't properly watched, I won't lie. But it's like, obviously the themes are a bit more darker, it's a bit more serious, so the color scheme's going to be a bit darker in that. So coloring is key to this because it'll just make the clips look more, canon. But if you are going to be masking in that, and you're going to go into After Effects, when you're rendering out a clip in Sony Vegas, and I learned this a long time ago, it makes it darker. And a friend of mine, actually, bless her heart, taught me a very cool and very easy trick to make the clips brighter. And basically, you go into Vegas and you click on your FX, and then you go into the Vegas tab, and then obviously you've got all your options here, and you choose levels, and basically you pick, I think it's Studio RGB to Computer RGB, and it makes your clip brighter. So when you're rendering out in Sony Vegas, it will make the clip a little bit brighter than the actual, like the original clip, because obviously when you're using a coloring by someone, obviously, again, like I said, when you're rendering out in Sony Vegas, it will make it a little bit darker, and you want that consistency in the coloring. So yeah, that's always a useful tip to know, is levels in Sony Vegas when you're rendering out. And then we get to the fun part, which is roto brushing, the actual masking part. You don't actually need to do this. I'm just a psychopath, and it's in my blood now. Like, it's in my memory skills that I have to mask. I just like to put characters in the same fucking frame, and I'm just like, the only way is to mask. So obviously, because I'm a Disney editor, I already know my way around this. You basically treat it like Disney editing. So roto brush, your curves, your hue and saturation, pen tool if you're, insane. I have pen tooled some things though, I won't lie there. I won't deny that, because sometimes it's easier than roto brushing. But that's besides the point. When you're roto brushing, obviously when you're masking Disney, you don't want to go overboard with your feathering and your shift edge, because otherwise you'll lose fingers and faces, and you know, you basically lose the entire mask, or you just get the background in if you feather too much. Feather is your best friend when you're masking live action. So normally with Disney, my numbers are a 10 for feather and then like a -8 for shift edge. When it comes to live action, I'm normally up in the 30s, and then just whatever gets rid of the outline really in shift edge. So yeah, basically you can experiment with your numbers when feathering, just whatever makes you happy. I just think going into the 30s, and then I think like the lowest I go with Edwina and the Darkling in these clips is like a -15. So yeah. When you're also masking live action, there are some like things that might be a bit more standoutish, like hair, for instance, and sleeves and that. Edwina is a really good example. So with her hair, she obviously has like these little flicks and curls that, you know, are really fucking annoying. It's so annoying. And obviously when you're feathering, it either gets rid of them or just has a little bit of it. Sometimes you have to make the ultimate sacrifices with live action. You have to sacrifice the minor details. So in this clip, I really sacrificed most of her hair. I said, fuck the hair, it's not needed. So yeah, because sometimes as well, I notice when I'm masking live action that sometimes things that, you know, are part of the costume or not looks a little weird, and it kind of stands out in like a really weird way when you throw it on obviously a different live action background or something. And sometimes you literally just have to say, does it look better off with or without it? And most of the time it's without. So don't be afraid just to sacrifice the small details. If it doesn't look right to you, get rid of it. Just get rid of it, even if it hurts. And then obviously I didn't do it with sorry for the coughing. Obviously I didn't do it in this clip because it wasn't really needed, and when I put the coloring on, it looked great. Sometimes you do have to mess around with your curves, with your curves and your hue and saturation and your brightness and contrast. A few examples I will throw up here. So one, you know, I say a few examples. I think I've literally just thrown up one because I'm about to say who it is. One good example of me messing around with all the above was Lorenzo de Medici and Valerie. We all knew this was coming. Come on. At this rate, you would be an idiot not to know. So basically, Lorenzo is he's in a room at night and it's only lit by candlelight, while Valerie is outside in the snow and it's very bright. So it was key that I made sure that Valerie looked like she was a part of the inside room. So which meant I had to mess around with curves and my hue and saturation, and I just threw in a light sweep in there because, you know, the room's lit by fire, but like candlelight in the fireplace. So, and obviously Lorenzo had like a very like definition of the outline of the fire in that, so it was needed. I try to avoid using light sweep with live action because it can look a bit shit. It just looks terrible. It really looks terrible most of the time. So unless it's, I would say if you need to use light sweep, use it in a room that is like lit by candlelight or something. Or like if it's obvious that the person in the clip, for instance, if someone's lit by the moon in the clip but your character isn't, use a light sweep and pretend that this person is also lit by the moon, okay? Like I think those are really the only times I would really use light sweep. So yeah, really when it comes to live action, you really just want to focus on your curves and your hue and saturation and brightness and contrast. So yeah, and then I put on my list general LA rules, live action rules. Really when you've just got to make sure that the characters are obviously looking in the same direction. So if one character is looking to the left, but then you've got another character, but your character that you're using. So let me use an example. Say that I'm using Haley Steinfeld as Juliet and Taron, what's his face, from Robin Hood. So in one clip she's looking to the right and then he's also looking to the right. You just flip him. Just flip him. It's that simple. Don't cry about it. Just flip it. It's very simple. And of course, obviously, if you're a Disney editor and you've already know this, so yeah. Obviously, it's just common sense, really. If a character's inside but the character is outside, if you want, you can pen tool them if they don't move that much in Sony Vegas. And also as well when it comes to coloring. If you're pen tooling in Sony Vegas and you get like this really harsh outline, again, I learned this from a friend, they're an actual lifesaver. You click on pan and crop and then you just move it behind the coloring and then that harsh outline is gone. I only really pen tool in Sony Vegas when the character's not moving that much. So another great example really is, I'll just flash it up here, is Valerie or Eleanor in certain things when she's outside. She didn't move that much, so I just kind of, fiddled around with the masking pen tool in Sony Vegas and then just kind of followed her movements. So that was easy. But yeah, I think that's about it for live action, I think. So yeah. I don't know how to close this off. So that's it for live action crossover. This really just was me rambling, but I did put like a note, like I did put like a bullet list of what to talk about in order of how I do it. So yeah. So if I would always love to know if people are trying out live action crossovers, because it's personally become so much fun and it's a weird way, a really relaxing thing for me when I'm taking a break from Disney editing, because my God, does it really test my patience. So yeah, I don't know if this was helpful, but that's what I do when I'm masking live action. Okay, so we are back with the second half, which is Disney and live action crossover. This is a little harder in my opinion, purely because of the Disney footage. There is only limited footage that you have. Sometimes you could just be working with one movie and that's all you're getting. So yeah, I'm just gonna start with the top of my bullet points here because I need to write everything out, otherwise I'll rumble. First of all, content aware film. Yes, use that for your backgrounds, but do not rely heavily on it because it can be hit or miss. And I mean it. Sometimes it can work really, really well. So for instance, here with Aurora and Benedict, it worked really well because content aware Phil could kind of see that, it's, similar background. It's very dark, pish posh, easy. Another few successful content aware Phil backgrounds were Dracula and Jasmine and Anya and Will Turner. And it's been the same for a couple of my live action ones. So some of the examples are Manu and Piet, who were my fan casting book video, where again she was on a relatively dark background and it was nighttime and all that, so I just had to click around Lorenzo and keep Clarice where she was because she was fine, and content where Phil went, okay, it's just nighttime. And I was quite lucky that the actor who I was using for Piet was rather a good size, or I'd sized him correctly, which is rare. So he just covered any mistakes that content aware Phil had. But I will say this, do not heavily rely on it because you will get mistakes like these, and you think it would be so simple, right? But content aware Phil is just, sometimes you just can't. That's all I can say. You can see the example. I mean, look at it. It's horrendous. So sometimes really when you're doing backgrounds, If you're successful with content aware fill, fantastic. If you're not, time for the alternative solution, which is finding a background in the scene that you're using and just zooming in on it and probably putting a little bit of Gaussian blur on it. I had to do this for Valerie and Philip. I'm sure there's other examples, but I can't think from the top of my head what I had to do that for. I think, this popped into my head. Anya and Will, I used content aware fill and it worked, kind of, but there was it was kind of noticeable that you could tell that there was someone else in that scene because the background was moving. Sometimes you either have to let it be, or you can like carefully position your animated character. I can't exactly remember what I did for Anya. I think I just positioned her to like move closer to Will's face. But yeah, there are times where you will notice the background moving. It's the same in the Valerie and Lorenzo one where, they're both in that dark room. Content aware Phil was aware that, the background can be similar, but because the camera was moving and so was the other actor that Daniel Sharman was acting opposite with was moving, you can kind of tell in the background that it moves a little. Sometimes you have to just let it be because there's not much you can do. Sometimes like stamp tool can help, but not a great deal. So yeah, backgrounds is just one of those things where you just have to really hope for the best, cross your fingers and hope for the best. And of course sometimes you have to reconstruct backgrounds like I've done with Benedict and Aurora here. I'm not even sure if we're at that point of the video. I'm not really watching it. So obviously content aware Phil was aware that it was a nice dark night scene and it took out half of Eloise's swing, which wasn't helpful. So what I did was I took Benedict's side of the swing and I just kind of scooched it over after like pen tooling it and then roto brushing it because we're dumb. we go the long way around, and I just positioned it on her swing, and obviously because Eloise moves a little bit, I had to obviously move both Aurora and the swing. And what I do is I try and find a point and just follow that point. So with the swing, you could kind of see one of the loose ends of the rope. So I kind of used that as my positioning for the swing. And then Aurora really was with her hairband. It is a little hard to track animated characters because obviously they move so much sometimes. With Aurora, like sometimes I positioned her, sometimes I didn't because she kind of turned, which kind of made it look like she was moving in the swing, which I was fine with. So yeah, there's that. I wrote down coloring. I don't know why. I was like, coloring, yeah, I'll talk about that. What the fuck are we talking about? What are we talking about coloring with, bitch? Oh yeah, it's the same rule applies to animated and live action. When you are using a color, just do what you do. Go into levels, brighten that clip up with both clips, and then import it into, render it in Sony Vegas, and then import it to After Effects. So that way the lighting is consistent. So that's basically it for what I did. So depending where we are, because I don't know if the video is already done or not, I hope you enjoyed the video, and I hope you enjoyed watching me edit some live action and animated and live action crossovers. Bye!